Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Once again, we'd like to welcome you onto the Sikh Youth Show. With me, I have my fellow Veers, Bhai Tasveer Singh and Bhai Manmohan Singh. First of all, we'd like to congratulate the French Sangat for winning the landmark case in the UN regarding the wearing of turbans as on official ID pictures, such as passports and driving licenses. So, for all the hard work that the Singhs involved, such as United Sikhs and the other legal Sikhs who have been involved in fighting this case, we'd like to congratulate you and thank you very much for taking this forward. So again, congratulations to the French Sikhs, and there will be some shows on the Sikh channel, if not already been passed, but there will be certainly shows coming up in the next few days regarding this great landmark for Sikhs. So we'll go straight into the discussion and straight into the topic. Today we decided to talk about conflict, and the reason we're talking about conflict is it's something that sticks with us as Sikhs. It is part of our, well, I wouldn't say part of our culture, but certainly we've all been involved in conflict at some point in time. And the reason we want to have this discussion is we really want to bash out what conflict is really about and how it affects us as a community, and specifically the conflicts around internal issues. Perhaps we could use the category, I tend to use this word, and I think other Punjabis use this very common, the tutu memes of this world, and how it affects us as Sikhs, and perhaps how it brings us down. What I want to really talk about is if you look at conflict and how perhaps the Gurus dealt with conflict, specifically Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Guru Nanak Dev Ji used the strength of Gurbani to discuss and mitigate areas of conflict. And perhaps nowadays we're using Gurbani in the opposite sense. Maybe we're using Gurbani to start a conflict. This is the question I'm going to put forward to my Veers. I mean, it's just a viewpoint, but we'll discuss this. And we'll also discuss the ideals that Gurbani talks about, the ideals of Sikhi, the ideals of a perfect utopia, if you want to call it, in the description of the idyllic town Begumpura, which Bhagat Ravidas talks about in Gurbani. And what is Begumpura? In the sense, my understanding of Begumpura is a city, is a town, which is Begum. As far as I can understand, my understanding of Gum means sadness. So it's a place that exists where there is no sadness, where there is no anxiety, no pain, no worry, no fear of tax of goods, no terror, no dread, no depression, and there's a sense of safety there. And certainly there's no reason why we can't implement an area of Begumpura within our immediate environment, be it our gurdwara, be it our houses. So what's stopping us from taking these things forward? So I'd like to turn to my Veers and ask them, perhaps we'll talk about Guru Nanak Dev Ji and how when areas, or how Guru Nanak Dev Ji led the way to deal with issues with the tool of perhaps discussion in Gurbani.
I mean, when you look at Siddh Gosht, the Jiri Baniya, which Guru Nanak Dev Ji obviously spent a lot of time speaking to people all around his udasis. And when Maharaj meets the Siddhs, the whole conversation is very intellectual. Mm-hmm. And Maharaj is obviously, this is the quality of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. He could communicate from different, to different people on different levels. Mm-hmm. Be it a labourer, like by Lalu, be it to the kings, like Babur, and be it to the yogis, and all are very knowledgeable in their particular subjects. And yet Guru Nanak Dev Ji is able to get his message across to each group of people when he meets them. Mm-hmm. And it's quite ironic, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji spent 30 years, 30 years of journeys Guru Nanak Dev Ji made, from Tibet to Baghdad, right up to Mecca, all to the southern states of India as well. And yet Guru Nanak Dev Ji must have met people of different religions, different classes, different languages almost. Maharaj yet was able to communicate with these people talk about the wrongdoings or the wrong practices they were doing, and was able to put his viewpoint forward without being offensive.
It's quite interesting you're saying that, because if you think about it, he would have been Maharaj would have been in so many different environments, where would have been direct reason for confrontation, perhaps, in the sense that he's in Mecca, dialoguing with the Muslims, with the Imam. He's in Hardwar, dialoguing with the elite Hindus. He would have been dialoguing with the elite Jains, the Buddhists, perhaps the Christians.
And the concept is, how did he win them over? Because when we're talking, when people are having there's a difference between a discussion. Sorry, no discussion. There's actually the terminology that we use. Actually, I've got it here in here somewhere. But a debate is mostly what we do, and debate is what we call tutu meme, as a debate. And Gurbani doesn't talk about debate. Gurbani talks about dialogue.
Most of us will fall into a debate, like
yes.
you said.
Guru Nanak Dev Ji always dialogued. He sat there and he listened to the other person's viewpoint, and then obviously took things from that and asked that person again, okay, look, you've said these things. Do you match up to these things? Or do these things practically mean anything?
And certainly Gurbani records that, because the dialogue is recorded in Gurbani as such.
And Siddh Gosht is that dialogue. And if you ever read that dialogue, in that Maharaj's answers are very short, are very direct. And the Siddh's questions are very big and very elaborate. And like, who were the Siddhs?
What were the Siddhs?
Siddhs were the yogis. The yogis who renounced the world. Who said, if you want to find God, go to the jungles, go to the mountains, dissociate yourself with any concept of any Maya. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji called them hypocrites. Not directly, but very artistically. He said, okay, look, when you need food, when you want clothing, you go to the same people that live in the villages, that work, who you call Maya de Bandiya.
The householders.
You go to them and then you ask for them to feed you, to clothe you. And then you say, Bande Papiya. You're living a hypocrisy. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji obviously traveled to these people to say, okay, look, you people have obviously gyan, and you're withholding that gyan from the Sangat, or from the broader people. And if I can educate them or bring them to this community, then that is obviously a big help in educating the larger population. And this is where I think we fall into a trap. We debate, we want to get one over each other. Guru Nanak Dev Ji wasn't trying to do that. He actually wanted them to see, okay, look, you have got the right gyan, you've got the right knowledge, and maybe the implementation needs to be tweaked a little bit. And if you said that to somebody, people are more than happy to make slight adjustments rather than saying change your whole concept. Because yogis still exist today, don't they? So it's the art of making somebody doing something by making them feel that they're doing it. Guru Nanak Dev Ji empowered them to make the change.
I think that empowerment is a massive thing in Sikhi, and certainly that's what we all get from what we get from Gurbani. We get self-empowerment. So imagine that specific point in time when Gurbani was being recited and introduced to the local people, how it would have been uplifting them and empowering them. And it's the old saying as well. There's when you hear the Gursikhs who say Jedi Jaban vich fateh, Odi Maidan vich fateh. And again, that's that kind of victorious type of speaking, and the prayers that the Gurus have given us, be Guru Nanak Dev Ji, be Guru Gobind Singh Ji, are uplifting. They're very victorious, and they build your self-esteem up. So you build their self-esteem up. You are confident, and be able to dialogue confidently as well. We should be. I'm not saying that that's specifically the case, but certainly we should be more confident to dialogue. And if not, we should be confident enough to perhaps, should we take a step back and better ourselves before we can take that dialogue forward?
It's also about having an open mind on these discussions. Vichar, we should see we should be doing vichar. We should be thinking. We should have faith that Gurbani is the truth, and all we're doing is really delving further and further into the truth, rather than thinking that if I delve in this direction, I might be coming into a version of a tuk which doesn't mean what it should mean. You get me? So there's those kind of you should have the confidence to interpret it, and have that faith that interpretation is still another version of the truth.
Well, Gurbani is dynamic.
Yeah.
And you can't say that your one interpretation is a static interpretation. We know that the same hukamnamas of Gurbani are
affect everybody in different ways.
Exactly. You all come with a different frame of mind. You go, then that's how dynamic Gurbani is. Certainly affects people in a different way. But certainly as Sikhs, the Gurdwara, and again we're going to go down a bit of a negative route here, so I apologize to everyone. The Gurdwara isn't often the safe haven for that kind of peace and tranquility. which we often see ourselves. Certainly, since we've been spending more time in the Gurdwara, we see little squabbles between the Sangat. And it's quite demoralizing and upsetting to see that these squabbles, which might be small things, amplify into large things, and it doesn't look good in the Gurdwara. Yesterday there was a small example of an argument over the Deg Seva. And again, these kind of things probably happen in all the different Gurdwaras.
Yeah.
So what's following us? How comes we're not able to absorb that tranquility and that peace that Gurbani is telling us to dialogue through and to respect for the men with?
You need to picture this. When Guru Amar Das Ji was made the Guru by Guru Angad Dev Ji, and by Datu Ji, who was the older son of Guru Angad Dev Ji, he obviously lived in Khadur Sahib. Khadur Sahib and Govindwal Sahib are not very far from each other, literally 10 minutes walk. I'm from Tarun Devich, obviously I'm from the area, and when I've been to the Gurdwara, it's walking distances. When Datu Ji is obviously very jealous, the Guru Amar Das Ji in Guru banaya gaya, he saw it as hereditary. I should have got the Guruship, not the Guru Amar Das Ji. And what he does, he sees that Maharaj ne boli banai hai, Govindwal Sahib, bahut sangat hundi hai, bahut chadawa chadda, the Guru's got a very large amount of following. He takes a few people with him, walks into a full darbar, where Guru Amar Das Ji is sitting. And Guru Amar Das Ji is very old. 80 saal de hone lag baat us time te. He goes up and he kicks Maharaj so hard that Datu Ji ne lat mari hai. Apne Baba apne Guru Amar Das Ji de mode te. On the back, he kicks him so hard, Baba Ji falls to the floor. Koi bhi lakhde ke Guru Amar Das Ji's head hit the floor, the khoon hola pya si. And when Guru Amar Das Ji falls to the floor, he didn't stand up and saying, "Main dasa tenu," no, in today's language. वो उठेया, उन्हें हाथ जोड़ेया, उन्हें क्या जी आया नु, कि तुसी गुरु अंगद देव जी दे सुपुत्र हैं, जी आए नु, कि तुसी सारे, कि तुसी अथे आए हैं, कि तुसी बैठो. And then he says कि जेरी लाता तुसी मैंने मारिया, जेरी पैर तुसी मारिया, थोड़े पैर दुखते नहीं लगे. The foot you kicked me with, has that foot been harmed in any way? Because my bones are old, they're rigid. Maybe your foot's got hurt, right? And Datu Ji is still, because there's a conflict of Homa here. He's got this zealous mind, and he's obviously very egotistical. And he says to Guru Amar Das Ji, you used to be the servant of this place. Now you think you're the Guru. So Guru Amar Das Ji, then what he does, he gets up and leaves. Leaves Govindwal Sahib, go back to Basareke, where Guru Amar Das Ji is from. Then he sits in a room and puts outside, nobody is to disturb me. If they were to disturb me, main on the Guru ni, or mere Sikh ni. So coming back to the point of conflict, now if the Guruji wanted there and then, there could have been massive conflict. Sangat Samne, there could have been bloodshed if not. But the Guru avoided it to show that, look, Guru karde vich jehdi nimirta aya, beshak Guru lat mari gayi hai, that nimirta has to be upheld at all cost. The respect of the Guru's darbar has to be maintained at all cost. Sahib Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, Makhan Shah finds Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, ke Guru and then the Tir Mali come and shoot Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji and take everything. And then Makhan Shah says to Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, look, ene thonu lutya, main jaake enu lut liya. Ene thodi goli mari, now Guruji, give me the agya that let me shoot Tir Maliya for shooting you. And Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji says, ke Makhan Shah, this is the whole idea which we want to get away from. Ki tu enu mariya, and menu mariya tu enu marta. ਇਹਨੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਗੋਲੀ ਮਾਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਵਾਲੇ ਨੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਗੋਲੀ ਮਾਰਤੀ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਵਾਲੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਤੀਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਫਰਕ ਹੀ ਹੋਇਆ.
And that cycle carries on for generations. I want to touch on a point that you brought about Nimrata and humility. I think it's such an underrated thing that we as individuals do not absorb. And humility sometimes is seen as a sign of weakness. It's an interpretation, and often there's that interpretation. You're seen as being humble, and you're seen as being as a weak individual. Now the Gurus, I think the Gurus here, Guru Amar Das definitely showed that humility is a much more powerful weapon. And it's the first weapon to use. It's the strongest weapon, because if you win someone over through humility, it's much stronger.
The Sakhi which Bhai Sahib gave here was more of a conflict Sakhi. There are other Sakhis as well, like when Baba Sri Chand came to see Guru Ram Das Ji, and he goes to Guru Ram Das Ji in a sort of a joking way, or maybe ridiculing way, that why is your daddy, why have you grown such a long beard? And then Guru Ram Das Ji goes just to wipe the feet of saints like yourself. So, this is very clever in the reply which are coming back as well. So it shows Maharaj was very, very, very clever in the way they would come back and diffuse any kind of...
diffuse is a good word, actually. Because I think that's it,
I also think, in hindsight, we can always look back and say, like at the time of, our gurus, they gave Shahidi. If you compare those to other kind of kingdoms or rulers, they wouldn't have actually gone and given Shahidi. They would have got their armies together and then had another conflict against those who would have a conflict against them. So, Maharaj really did, to the point of where they actually give their life up in order to diffuse the conflict, then they would do that.
Yeah, to diffuse unnecessary bloodshed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If one guru gives a shahidi
Yeah.
and it stops thousands being killed, the guru saw surely that's more worthwhile.
That's a worthwhile decision to make.
You see,
it's a big
concept.
It's a big sacrifice, because to bring humility forward, there's only very few people, I think, that are able to understand that and grasp that, to be able to take humility forward. And I think often, sometimes we do the camps and, parents come up to me and say, my kids they're too nice, they're too weak, I want them to be stronger, I want to be takre, which you're not denying. It's good to have self-discipline, it's good to have a bit of self-confidence and self-esteem. But in my experience now, I think we're a bit older, and we've been through the wars a bit, and I often think now that humility, the people who have humility or understand, have a better grasp of clarity and a better grasp of understanding the situation than someone who flies off the handle and doesn't. I put myself in the category of being the person who used to fly off the handle. I think we all have.
No, sure.
As you get older and wiser, and you've been kicked around a bit, and you've got some wounds to show for it. You do look back and you think, okay, perhaps there's a better approach, and there would have been a more long-term solution to the hull. To the situation, rather than go guns blazing in and take it that way. I
mean, again, that scenario put them in, the first thing that comes to mind there is, at the time of after Baba Banda Singh Bahadur Shahidi and everything, and then there was the conflict between the Tat Khalsa and the Bandai Khalsa, which was resolved by Mani Singh.
Exactly.
That's where, an old person who had understanding of Gurmat, one of our great Gur Sikhs, helped to resolve that by, giving the decision of whichever, writing the Tat Khalsa on one piece of paper and then Bandai Khalsa on another, and putting it in the Sarovar, and whichever paper comes first will be the one who would lead the Panth forward. So those were kind of and that diffused the situation in that the Tat Khalsa came, Bandai Khalsa then said, okay, this is a decision which we will take, which we will accept now as well. So those are the kind of, that's the power of the Gursikh. When I think of that Sakhi as well, I think, it really, really shows that our leaders or our people involved in committees or in Gurdwaras have to be Gursikh. And those Gursikhs have to really take that step forward and become part of that. Otherwise, conflicts. That conflict. If a Gursikh wasn't in between that conflict, you don't know where it could have broken to. What could have come out of it.
Gurmat has to prevail. And that's the only way. Gurmat has to be the deciding factor. In the decision making.
But there has to also be acceptance to the Gurmat. That's probably where we maybe moved away from, where we're not going to accept that a Gurmat decision might be against an individual's personal decision or choice, or it might not work in their favor, but it's a Gurmat decision. That's where an individual has to actually accept that, I understand that this decision is related on Gursikh principles rather than my own personal gain or loss.
In reality, isn't that difficult in today's day and age? Because this argument I've had with people and discussion I've had with people, and they're saying, okay, when you talk about these Gurmat ideals, you're talking about a Khalsa Panth that was small in numbers, that was controllable and manageable. You're talking about Sarbat Khalsa that would make a decision based on a pretty small number compared to what we are now as a diaspora across the world.
But there were, if you think about the Misl times, there probably weren't any time more when they were more powerful and stronger.
And perhaps more conflicts
and more
as well.
complex and confident as well. And not only were they willing, not internal conflicts as well, but external conflicts. A very powerful group of individuals who also had their individual, they were all working individually, but then at a point or for a reason, they would join under the Khalsa banner. So there was that one thing which they were united on. There might have been many other things which they were disunited on, but they were still united on, to stop the external enemy from attacking Punjab.
So what gelled everyone then into that decision making, because I certainly think that that not only have we've got the larger model of millions of Sikhs now, but is our decision making and leadership based on the right values? Because I think we're shying away from being Gurmat. Certainly, and I have to make this statement. Many people will not agree with it, and we've had this discussion many times along youth. We do lack leadership, no matter what kind of framework exists. And I'm talking about UK-based leadership, and certainly we need that. And if there is a framework that exists out there, like the Sikh Council, it does need to step up. It does need to be more involved. I'm very new to the Sikh Council. I've recently become a member of the executive board, so there's not much I can comment on at this early stage. So I'm commenting on this as an outsider, and I'm hoping that entering the Sikh Council, I will see this leadership. I will see this leadership that are not sitting on the fence, that are looking at Gurmat ideals and diffusing situations as they arise.
The problem is this: if a situation isn't resolved, then what happens? It bubbles up. Time after time, the same situation will bubble up. And we look ridiculous then in the mainstream society and in mainstream media. Look, these are people with the most divine message, with the most holy written scripture, Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj, which explains on every aspect how to deal with issues, and yet they cannot sort out their personal issues. We become a laughing stock within our own selves. And I think, if more so, it's necessary that these organisations do get involved and take the issues and deal with them. Because unless you do that, who else will? And this is what Guru Nanak Dev Ji did in his 30 years. All the Gurus did that. The Gurus didn't avoid hard issues. Sikhs are. We are. And it's individuals like United Sikhs or some of the other charities who then take it on a singular and try to fight these things. They shouldn't have to be singular. The Missus used to fight Sarbat Khalsa concepts together. There was one or two Missus that obviously sometimes used to fall out with each other, but when there was a joint decision made, the Missus worked together on that common goal. We're not doing that today. Hence, we're conflicting. Right? Our dialogue needs to be more professional. We cannot sit in a room and just throw in our ideas just with any kind of mindset. You've got to be very sure when you're going into that dialogue stage, when you're going to be talking to other people, what is your message? Be concise, be specific, and put it forward. And what we have to do is stop this dragging out. Because a lot of if you look at sometimes we go to these meetings, at one point it's so dragged out to the point you forget about what the point actually was.
It's because perhaps there's no clarity. And perhaps it goes back to Gursikhi, it goes back to Gurmat. If your lack of understanding, if your understanding of Gurmat is weak, is the right word to use.
You have too much of that.
Then your decision making will be blurred and dragged out. Because Gurmat is clear. It's very clear. If you understand it and you understand the principles and the morals and the ethics, then it's either yes or no.
If Guru Nanak Dev Ji can use the ideals of Gurmat, the Guru can use the ideals of Gurmat for our history and find decisions. Surely that is the path we've got to follow as well. It's very clear that Maharaj ne koi faisla le aaya, Gurmat de anusar le aaya, to avoid conflict.
For the betterment of the Panth as well.
Of course.
And if the conflicts were taken on, it was the last resort, and they were taken on again for the tranquility and peace of that area. So the battles that the Gurus had to fight were for peace. They were just, and they were the reasons they went forward. Let's step a few years forward now and fast track to...
if I just one quick point.
Hanji.
You're talking about, again, Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, again, to avoid conflict. He left Anandpur Sahib to Paonta Sahib. So that the Pahari Rajas, they were harassing the Guru, they're harassing the Sangat. So Guru saw, listen, they want war. They want any excuse to have war with the Sikhs, with the Guru. And obviously, Nuksan, Janta da honaya. So the Guru went to Paonta Sahib. And still, after 2 years living there, the Pahari Rajas still harassed Sikhs. And that is when the Guru did make a stand. And then the first war, Pangane da Jud, at the very tender age of 18, Maharaj took upon himself. So when the Sikhs have to take a stand, the Gurus did take a stand. They didn't run away from intimidation. They diffused the situation to the point then the Guru had to stand the ground, and the Gurus did fight, and they did win. Imagine likya shabd ke pe jeet meri kirpa kal keri. So we really have to look at our history, and I think a lot of the people who fall into debating and the tutu mama are those people who have ill understanding of their history and not even any understanding of Gurbani at all. And then know one or two tukka, and they will use one or two tukka and throw them in your face. Maharaj says this, Maharaj says that. But any tuk taken out of a context of the Shabad
Can mean anything. Can mean anything.
Personally, it means nothing. The talk is contributing to a shabad. The whole shabad has to contribute towards a point of view. Right? And if you're just taking one talk and saying, Maharaj is saying this, actually Maharaj is not saying that. Maharaj is delivering a message for the shabad. And people who want to cause trouble, that's what they're doing. And I think we need to now begin to look at those people who are debating these concepts, leave them alone and look at dialogue. If you're doing something which is not right, then talk to the person, ask them to revisit what they're doing, and to ask them, look, if you can tweak them up, surely we can find a resolution.
Yeah. So perhaps with dialogue there, you can only have this arena for dialogue if there's a unity. Yeah. Now the other question we can say, I'm conscious that we're running out of time as well, but the fact that we lack, there is a divide and there is a lack of unity, because the divisions are stronger now than perhaps they were. Maybe they've always been there.
Like now you can imagine there's the previous divisions, now the divisions within the divisions.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's just multiplying. So where is that one common unity which we require in order to come together? But I mean, there's also we also look. The thing is, everybody seems to have become very inward as well to a point. In that, I mean that you could interpret it that people are now becoming very selfish in that their aim is not for the betterment of something. It's more that can something happen for myself? Can I achieve this? Can I achieve that? And that's what the squabbles are really about. It's about the personal thing that this person's taken my seva, or this person's
it's territorial.
Territorial.
And seva becomes territorial, and certainly when you come into the Gurdwara culture, you'll see a lot of seva is territorial. Yeah. Seva that's in the Guru Ghar, in the kitchens, in the halls, you name it, wherever you go.
That carries on the bigger.
And it does, and it does, and it filters out to the one who has a passion to understand and learn more Sikhi, has to unfortunately see this kind of conflict taking place around them, and what you're doing is you're clouding his vision, and you're making it even harder for this person, he or she, to step up and take their Sikhi forward. So it's dangerous. Yeah, it is dangerous.
I think we go back to the same. When the Gurus came in for the same, Guru came into the world for that exact purpose, to dispel conflict. Guru aaye kisi ke, kyunki the conflict of Tund, the fog of conflict was all over the world, and the Gurus came to dispel that fog. And now we find ourselves in the same Tund due to the lack of our personal understanding of Gurbani, because we rely upon somebody else telling us that Gurbani aa can diya, o can diya. Our lack of personal connection with Gurbani is making us fall into that trap time after time. If you're not strong within yourself, if your spirit isn't strong, people talk about being strong, your spirit needs to be strong. Guru Nanak Dev Ji didn't lift any Kirpan in his 30 years, and yet he made more Sikhs than anyone in the world. Maharaj ne apna, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, all the Gurus who went out, they done prachar, they done it with the concept of dialogue. Je ko bole bol vigad, taan se likhiye gawara gawar. Jab jab road padde hain ki if your words are making division, are causing hurt, are causing discomfort within yourself, within the community, then you're gawar. Gawar is someone is like you're a useless person. You have no place. And Guru Nanak Ji sabse badi gaal us bandu nu kaddi hai.
Yeah, I mean also if you think about conflict, we probably now more see that Sikhs are more we see a lot of conflict within ourselves. When we're sitting at home and everything, we'll all have a story to say of some conflict which happened within the Gurdwara or something like that, and we it makes people think, or it make us think that that's all we're all about. But again, if we take back to our history and everything like that, I mean, often the Nankana Sahib massacres of the early 1920s and then the Jeto Morchas and everything, Sikhs then had to make a decision. The Gurdwara Act was implemented. All the Sudhar laws and everything, it was there to stop this conflict. At the end of the day, in terms of conflict, I mean, it wasn't negative. It's not a negative conflict in that way, but any kind of thing which is causing any kind of
aggravation. And it was at the time, because we weren't certain Gurdwaras were run by different Riyadas and stuff, so there had to be a standardization.
So there was that standardization. So we're also front leaders in trying to diffuse conflict as much as possible. That's what we should be seeing. We shouldn't be seeing. People shouldn't just be looking back now, and people shouldn't just be passing the stories on of what happened at the nearest Gurdwara. Let's look back now and say, how do I now, how do I stop this from happening? How do I get involved and say, let's try and resolve this situation? Because we shouldn't be known for these kind of things. No. Our battles should be the battles like of what Guru Gobind Singh Ji. We fight for the morals, we fight for the rights, we don't fight for the personal gain,
Yeah.
or the personal land or those kind of things.
Or the glory of the seva.
The glory of the seva. Yeah.
Unfortunately, our time has come to an end. I think we came into a bit of a heavy debate here, and I think the short time frame that we had to do it in is not giving the debate justice. I think this could have gone on for another half an hour. So I think we may just carry this on in another form of discussion. We apologise if we've offended anyone. This wasn't a personal attack or anything along those lines. It was just a discussion. It's just something that we feel quite passionate about at the moment. So we'd like to thank the Sikh channel once again for giving us this platform. And on behalf of the Veers and myself, we hope to see you next week for the next show. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.